Hello and welcome to Thoughts On. I'm Tanvi.
And my name is Ashna, and today we are talking about names. We're redoing this intro, so I'm just going to reiterate what we just said, which is that we already also re-recorded this entire episode once, many months ago.
Yeah.
So some content might be new, but some of it might be what we already talked about, but you guys won't know the difference, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, unfortunately, our phones were not recording.
One of our phones was not recording, but
but now we're here many,
Yeah.
many months later.
And we're together also.
Yes, that's important. We were in the same room, right across from each other for the
Yeah.
first time recording this.
What did John and Hank say? Like, it's just a reunion video, I think they call them, when they're together.
Yeah, yep, reunion
video.
Reunion pod.
Except we don't have enough pods for this to even be a reunion of
It's a
any
union pod.
Yeah, yes, exactly. We've never had one of these before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
But anyway, so names. I have lots of thoughts and feelings about names that I feel like have not changed much in the last how much ever time it's been since we talked about this in the past. Mostly because I feel like I've been interacting with the same people who, like, there's been really no new people that I have to contend with my name, per se.
I also feel like, generally speaking, well, okay, I guess it's a little different. I think when I first moved to Seattle, I was talking to a lot more new people than I still talk to now, because obviously you're meeting a lot of people at once and then you kind of narrow down your people.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those people, I think, also gave me some thoughts about my name, which I can talk about. So I don't talk to them anymore, so that's kind of dropped off a little bit. But at work, which is another kind of big source of, or big place where I have thoughts on names, that is still consistent. But again, although it's been consistent, I've just gotten more used to it, so I think it just doesn't bother me as much, but still there, and can think of some examples that I probably would have also talked about a couple months back. So same thing there. So yeah, dive right into it.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is my name is not how I say my name. Like, I introduced myself in the beginning of this podcast as Tanvi. That is, in fact, not my name. My name is Tanvi. In India, where I'm from, where I was born, and how my parents named me, thinking that we were going to stay in India for the rest of our lives, Tanvi was a perfectly acceptable name. In fact, it was a very unique name at the time.
Aww.
Now it's not as much of a unique name.
Unfortunate.
Well, yeah, it works out when you're in the US and other people are named the same name as you.
Fair.
But Tanvi was like, that was my name. That is my name, I should say. And then when we moved to the United States, like, the th sound in Hindi is not an American English phoneme, or phone, I should say. And so people can't really say Tanvi anymore. They can say everything else in the name except for the th sound. And so instead, the way I introduced myself, or I guess the way my parents introduced me when we first moved to the US, was as Tanvi. So the vowel sound is completely different now. And then in order to accommodate for the consonant of the T being different as well.
Can American English speakers say Anvi? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
They can.
Yeah, Anvi.
Can they? Anvi? Are there is like
It's like a schwa if you think about it in linguistics terms.
Yeah, like we were talking about.
Yeah. So theoretically, yes, it's within the phonemes of English, American English, but it's not necessarily like a common way, common string of letters.
Okay.
But the issue is with the th, which is not even pronounceable to a lot of people. Like, theoretically, my parents could have introduced me as Tanvi, which is, I think, is worse because that sounds odd to me because I'm not used to it.
Yeah, but it's closer in some ways.
Theoretically, it is closer to the real pronunciation of my name.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I introduced myself as Tanvi, and I've been introducing myself as Tanvi for the last, 20 years since I've been in the US. And at this point, Tanvi is now my name. Like, I have two names now that are completely different names. One is my quote-unquote real name, actual name, Tanvi. My parents call me Tanvi. My brother calls me Tanvi. Like, some of my close friends who are able to pronounce the call me Tanvi. You call me Tanvi.
Yes.
But everyone else calls me Tanvi. I will say, as an aside, there are some people who call me Tanvi, which... So,
let's talk about it.
Yeah. So that is another pronunciation of my name with a completely different vowel sound. And I think that's the part of the issue with American English, is that the A is such a versatile letter that it has a lot of vowel sounds, and that the A and V, like string of letters, is not common in American English. So there's no sort of accepted way to pronounce that string of letters.
Yeah.
And so actually when I was first in the US, I think most people did call me Tanvi.
They did.
Like I guess out of their way of pronunciation. I can't remember because it's been so long. But I do know for a fact that when I moved to Canada, like I introduced myself as Tanvi, people called me Tanvi, got used to Tanvi. Especially because when I was in Canada, that was like more like formative years time, like whatever, end of elementary school, beginning of middle school.
Yeah.
And then when I moved back to the US, people would call me Tanvi, but I would introduce myself as Tanvi.
Okay.
So it seemed to be like an American-Canadian difference.
So I'm curious, do you know the first time you introduced yourself as Tanvi? Like, who gave you the idea to say that?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm guessing it's my parents.
Really? I was gonna guess it was a teacher that said that, and then you kind of ran with it.
That's also possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably have to check with my parents to see what they introduced me as, because I doubt they introduced me as Tanvi.
Really?
Yeah, I really
They like
that.
knew that no one was gonna be able to say it. Like they didn't even try.
I think so. Or maybe they tried a little bit. I don't know.
I feel like I'm not sold because why would a parent call their kid something else in front of someone else? Like I feel like it's more likely that someone who doesn't know you would change your name. Because
okay,
like,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's a good point. That is true.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, one introduction by my parents doesn't matter anyway in terms of like
exactly
in school what the teacher is calling me day to day when she inevitably forgets my name type of thing.
Right, and your teachers are not going to remember what your parents even introduced you.
Yes, exactly. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it was like originally it was called Tanvi. Tanvi stuck. Canada, Tanvi worked. Tanvi was some teachers called me Tanvi, and even when I introduced myself as Tanvi, they would still call me Tanvi, which is like whatever. I didn't really mind because I'd been called both before.
Yeah.
I think at that point I had like become enough of a person, become enough of myself to like own the name Tanvi and present myself as Tanvi.
Yeah.
And introduce myself as Tanvi.
Yeah.
So Tanvi feels like a little bit off, but it's still permissible. I still answer to it.
Yeah.
But I don't consider that like one of my names.
In a weird way, it's almost like at that point you still had like plasticity that was like okay to take on a new name, but after a certain point it's like, well, I don't know if I can take on a new name now. Like I feel like my names are set.
Exactly. Yeah. And at this point my names are totally set.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't like start calling me a different name now and expect me to answer to it, or like expect me to like be okay with it.
Yeah. Unless it's like a nickname. Oh, unless of course you want to change your name for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or if there is maybe a nickname that you like, maybe I can see that. I can see myself doing that.
But it won't be my name. Like Tanvi is my name.
Okay, fair, fair. Yeah.
I fully adopted it as my name.
That's fair. That is different actually. Yeah. That's interesting. I guess I don't have that experience. Also, something that you said earlier that I was thinking about is I didn't realize that your parents did not have any plans to move to the US.
Yeah. So our plan, even when we moved to the US, our plan was always to move back.
Okay.
But then you know what happens. Like, you end up settling.
Yeah. So. That is a big plot point. Like I feel like that makes a big difference in, I assume, how a lot of parents name their kids. Like they imagine okay, I guess not all parents are thinking about it, but my parents definitely spent a lot of time thinking about names that they thought an American accent would be able to pronounce.
Interesting.
This was like a very like important point in factor in their decision. So my name is Ashna. My brother's name is Ayush. They wanted A names because my family likes A names, but unrelated to that, they kind of, I think, sounded out a lot of the names and were like, okay, my name does use the A sound that people mispronounce your name with. The Ash. Well, it's not
Tanvi,
Ashna. Yeah, it is the same.
Slightly different sounds, but yeah.
Is it? Close enough. So Ayush, my brother's, is also the same kind of A sound. So yeah, I guess like if we're going like if those are the three levels, then I'm the middle level, which people with American accents can pronounce. And the problem that I also have been recently getting for the first time ever is people calling me Ashna. So they go the other, like they go the extremity that you also have had.
Yeah.
But I don't have the problem that you have because my name does not use the leftmost, the other extremity of like the
sound, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that has made all the difference.
Yeah. Plus, like ASH is ash, which is a word in English. So people maybe read that, say ashed, and then add the na on the end.
And same with tan, Tan.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
That's
yeah.
when he said Tanvi, I was like, oh, maybe they're just breaking it up and seeing the word tan.
Yeah. Interesting. Because like when you say it in Hindi, okay, my name is a little strange also in Hindi because my parents like spelled it wrong. Like they
Okay.
spell like the nava e.
Okay.
So Tanvi, like when you say Tanvi, there's no like separate na like
Okay.
alphabet. You're supposed to like fold it into the va, so it's Tanvi as opposed to Tanavi. So the way my name is written in Hindi is
Oh.
literally spelled as Tanavi.
Oh,
Which
that's
is
also a
also
nice
not
name.
how you say my name.
Yeah, a nice name, but not the name that you've taken on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
my like in Hindi, like the na is like built into the rest of the letters.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like na is just as like the end of the sound so it makes it flow together a lot more than in Tanvi. It's like two separate.
When he said it sounded so French, all of a sudden.
Tanvi.
But yeah, that does make sense. So yeah, I guess for me, all throughout high school, I didn't really have any problems. There was one substitute teacher for gym that called me Ashna once. And it was actually really funny because everyone was like, what did they call you? Like, it was just like very clearly wrong. Obviously, because in the class, like people know who you are, so they know. But it was also for the first time that had happened to me. So, and I don't know if other people knew that, but I just remember it being kind of funny because everyone was like, why did they call you that? Like, it's not a difficult name to say. I think that's really the big point. So it was just funny. But when I moved to Seattle, I met a lot of white people, and it was
shocker.
It is, yeah, it's very different, honestly, from any of the landscapes. Sorry, I missed Maryland. I also lived in Maryland, but I was surrounded by a lot of Desi people there as well. And I did computer science, so I don't think that's that surprising. But yeah, in Seattle, yeah, there's a lot of white people that live in Seattle or have moved to Seattle. And for whatever reason, yeah, the early circles I had, like lots of white people, American born. And one experience I had more frequently than I used to have was just being mistaken for another Desi person at all. Like, I think in school it happened by teachers. Like teachers would confuse us with one another, but it never happened to me from a peer. Like a peer had never mixed me up with someone who was also a peer.
Yeah.
Like we're all hanging out, and I know who you are, but you're gonna mix me up with this other person because for some reason for you, it's harder to identify two faces than it is for me to identify you. Like that was such a weird experience. Very normal for a lot of people in certain environments, obviously, but yeah, that was the first time this experience kept happening to me. That's unrelated though to my name. I mean, I guess it's related because they couldn't remember my name.
Yeah.
But apart from that, at work, my manager calls me Ashna.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, what?
Yeah.
To this day?
To this day, yeah.
That's crazy.
It is a little crazy to me. I think it's only because I've definitely introduced myself to him and also to other people while he's there.
Yeah, and in your meetings, literally you had so many meetings today where like other people in the meeting would call you Ashna.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you heard that. Yeah. Very happy with that. I actually think it's funny. Sometimes when my manager's in the meeting, if he says my name, other people who usually call me by my name correctly, might get confused and maybe switch over to say Ashna and then maybe switch back and say Ashna. Like, it's like I can kind of see them go back and forth. Obviously, I'm noticing it more than anyone else because it's my name. But yeah, and actually I've noticed my manager, it's not really about like what culture the name comes from. Any name, at least that I've seen so far, any name that starts with A, he'll say the rightmost, the ah sound. Because his name actually also starts with that ah sound. His name starts with an A. Yeah. So
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know why. Like, it's not like uniform, and not everyone's.
Yeah, no, and he should be able to adapt.
Yeah. And I guess I just am more surprised because I think we grew up in an age where you listen to how people's names are pronounced and you take that very seriously. Yeah. Like, you ask people how to pronounce their names. I feel like we were taught to do that in some ways. But I don't think the older generation ever did that. Like, I don't think that's something that they were taught. Like, even asking someone how to pronounce their name is not something that people do in, like, the older generation does not do that in corporate America. That was a big shock to me at first as well. Because my inclination would always be to want to ask. And I do ask if I'm not sure. But the response is always like, oh, like a bit of a surprise. Like, oh, like you're not just going to call me by whatever you think is right. You're going to ask me. It's not even like it's appreciated, really. It's just kind of confusion. Like, half of them don't even really care what you call them, I feel like. So I think that is a generational thing also. So he might not even realize that well, he doesn't realize that he's calling my name wrong for like first, but he also probably doesn't realize that it matters for whatever reason. And I don't think it bothers me nearly, like, it really does not bother me much anymore. It's still, like, I still notice it every time.
Have you thought about bringing it up with him?
I'm not really sure how to now.
Yeah, now it's a little late.
Yeah, because also I do consistently introduce myself to other people while he's there.
Yeah.
And so to me, in my head, it's kind of the responsibility of the person to be listening.
100%, yes.
Yeah. But again, like different generations, different whatever senses of normalcy when it comes to names. So I don't really know what to do. Again, it's not like really. He's a good manager. Like I don't really have any complaints. Yeah, exactly. So I don't really know. But it's just the first time that someone also that I see this frequently has called me the wrong name. So
consistently,
yeah. So just interesting. I guess that's what I mean about my thoughts having changed, because I think when we would have talked about this a couple months ago, I might have been a lot more frustrated because it's like such an easy name, I feel, for an American accent to say. And I have introduced myself, but I think I just don't have this annoyance or anger anymore. Yeah. Because I think he's a good person. So and I think he's, or whether or not he's a good person, I think he's a good manager. So yeah, I don't know.
No, it's interesting because I have the opposite problem in med school. Because I obviously, like, it's all my generation, like my like age-ish people, and everyone is very like vigilant about like people from different cultures and like knowing their names and like everything, like no, like the best way to identify someone, they want to make sure they get it correct. And so when I still introduce myself as Tanvi, but there are some people who I know can say the sound the, who I say like, you can call me Tanvi. And like, for example, at like the brown people events, like I do introduce myself even to people I've never met before as Tanvi, because I know they can say it. Like I am confident that they have the ability to say my name properly. And I think that is what the crux is. Like my name Tanvi is like, that is the way to say it. And if you try to say it, but you say it incorrectly, that's not my name anymore. Like I'd rather than you say my other name that I have fully adopted as my own name, because you can say that name properly, versus you like fumbling and trying to say my other name, my like whatever ethnic name, Tanvi, properly and not being able to say it. But I think I've come across scenarios where the same thing for you, in the sense like your manager will say your name wrong and other people will be like, oh my god, am I supposed to say it that way or the other way? So people will come up who I've sort of allowed to say Tanvi, and they'll say like Tanvi in conversation, and then the other person will be like, oh my god, am I saying her name wrong this whole time? Like am I supposed to say Tanvi? And then, or some of them will just be like wanting to attempt to say and call me by my like quote unquote real name, even though they know they can't say it or whatever, and they'll say like Tanvi or something, or it's like they'll just say it wrong, and it'll sound, and maybe to their ear it doesn't sound that wrong, but to my ear it sounds very wrong, and it doesn't sound like my name. And like, and those people know that I have a name Tanvi that they can very easily use, and that's how I introduce myself to them. And so I think there's a little bit of confusion when some people call me Tanvi and some people call me Tanvi. But I have not been able to bring up to the people that try to call me Tanvi but can't say Tanvi, to like, don't call me Tanvi, please. Like you can't say it. But now I like don't. I don't know. Like I don't. There's only a few people in my like that I interacted with in med school that would do that, and like they're amazing people, and they definitely had the best intentions. And so I didn't want to like I don't know, like correct them on their intentions. I just wanted to correct them on the name. So I just like didn't in the end of the day, and they just call me whatever they want now, and I just like I don't talk to a lot of them that as much anymore, so I just let it go.
I'm like, their intentions were probably really good. Wait, I actually have a analogous story, I guess, where, and I'm never doing this again because I regret it, and I think it's not that serious though, but basically I made a friend who has a Desi name, but they don't introduce it using the pronunciation that I think in India they would use. I just started calling them by the name with the pronunciation that I'm fairly certain people in India would use, assuming that that's what they would prefer, and that was the mistake. Not that was like, we never actually ended up discussing this, but basically their partner, when I heard their partner call them by the Americanized version, I was like, okay, I should not be calling them, which is interesting actually though, because I know we'll talk about something else after this, but that was to me the signal to be like, okay, wait, let me just call them by whatever the people that love them the most are calling them, because we haven't had this conversation.
Yes.
And so then I switched. So it wasn't too long of a period, but I'm not doing that again. I'm just gonna call them by whatever I hear them say.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's like a good rule of thumb.
yeah.
And like as someone who would be on that side,
Mhm.
I would say like if I wanted someone to say my name the way that I wanted them to say it, I would tell them like, okay, I would say my name is Tanvi, but you can call me Tanvi.
Yeah.
And I say that I use that line all the time to people
Okay.
that I know can
Nice.
say
That's
Tanvi.
yeah, that's a good line.
Yeah, or I say like Tanvi or Tanvi,
Yeah.
whatever, and then they can choose if they can say both.
Mm.
So I have two thoughts on that. One is I have the same thing where I have a friend who has like a Indian pronunciation and then like the Americanized English pronunciation, and I like flip flop between the two for no apparent reason. And I did like have a conversation with her and like asked her like which one do you prefer, and she has no preference, but like everyone around her and even parts of her family, because her family is like both Indian and not. Call her by like the Americanized version of her name. So I think to her it matters less, and she like responds to both. So that was one thing. Is like I also have friends that have that experience. But surprisingly, it's with the same like letter. It's like the that really messes people up.
Yeah.
And for her, it's the same thing. Like the like changing the consonant changes the vowel sounds around it. So you're changing the entire name. You're not just changing one sound to one sound.
Yeah.
You're changing the entire structure of the name.
Yeah.
Like the emphasis and everything. So it's like two very distinct names that now both of us are like responding to and adopting as our name. My other thought is the thought about partners, and I was just talking to you about this. And I like only just had this thought really is like, what if I end up with a partner who like literally cannot say my real name? And like, so I think I had more grief about this before, or not even before, but like when I first thought about this, I had more grief about the subject. Like, oh my god, my name is literally gonna be lost. Like, no, who's gonna call me by my real name? But then I was like, I have now fully adopted both names as my name, so I don't really care as much.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'd rather they say my name correctly in one way than incorrectly in the like, Indian way.
Yeah.
So it's like now I don't think I would mind as much, but it's definitely something I'm like, wow, like literally my name will be unpronounceable to that person potentially.
I think it could be just a long-term kind of exercise,
like a project.
Yeah, kind of. I for a bit was seeing this, I guess, influencer, someone on TikTok who had two accents, like had I think, was it British or were they American? Some Western accent and then also an Indian accent. Their first accent was an Indian accent, but they developed a very like strong, I'm really forgetting if it was British or American, but some Western accent. And they met their partner who they met while speaking the Western accent. And yeah, they've been together for many years. And for a while, she's only using her Western accent with her partner. Probably it felt for a while that her partner didn't really know her true self because although, yes, she does use both accents very fluently now and they do come very naturally to her, her Indian accent was her first accent and she feels like there's parts of her personality that don't really come out with her Western accent. And so she wanted to use her Indian accent with her partner, which she had never done before. She never used her Indian accent with anyone who was really not her family, I guess. At home, she would normally use it all the time. Yeah. And so now that he was a part of her home, she was like, this is feeling a little weird. Like, I feel like I'm just code switching, but I don't want to in my home. It was just a choice. Like, I think she just decided that she wanted it to be the same. She wanted him to know both parts of her, maybe the truest part of her. She just kind of, for her, was just switching her accent. Well, I guess it's not that easy. Yeah. She slowly started kind of familiarizing herself and him with her, I guess, quote unquote, true accent. But I don't know if I'm projecting this now that we're talking about this, but I think there might have been a piece of this where she also worked with him to have him say her name correctly, like in this whole exercise as well. So like vice versa, they were kind of meeting each other in the middle. Yeah. Or really not really in the middle, actually. Meeting her where she was at, which is even better even. Yeah. And I'm sure it won't be perfect immediately. And it will be a little kind of, weird and gross in between. Yeah. But I have faith that they can learn how to say a new sound. Like people learn different languages at older ages, and I think it's possible.
That's true. I don't know. One, I don't think names are that deep, especially because I've adopted the other name as my name. But two, I also don't know if I have a lot of faith in people learning a whole new sound.
Really?
Especially like Hindi sounds are difficult, and there is like linguistics research that shows you do sort of like fall into your phones and phonemes at a relatively early age.
But this would just be truly one sound.
Yeah, that you're right. It would just be one sound.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can work on it.
Yeah, and I just feel like if they really wanted to commit to it, which they should,
Yeah.
that they could do it. Maybe just listen to people speaking in Hindi or something. Watch Bollywood movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen to the sound enough that
and practice producing it.
Yeah. Again, yeah, it'll be kind of icky at first, probably, but I think worthwhile if it matters enough. Because I like over the last however many minutes we've been talking, I do feel like you're saying your quote unquote real name is Tanvi. Like, yes, you're saying you have both, but like every so often you'll say my real name.
Like my original name. I think is more what I'm going for, but it is theoretically my real name.
Yeah.
And then my adopted name.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I mean, both are valid names, but yeah, it seems like one feels more real to you, maybe?
Yeah, or one is like what it was intended to be, and the other one is what it was compromised to become.
Yeah. My brother actually was supposed to be called Ayush, like the emphasis was supposed to be on the A, but we call him Ayush.
Is Ayush like even a Hindi? I feel like I've never even heard of that in Hindi.
I think like Ayushman, like
oh yes, like Ayushman Khurrana, the actor.
I guess.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's where it came from.
I see.
But I'm pretty sure his name was supposed to have an emphasis on the first syllable.
I see.
But then, actually, funnily enough, if I remember the story correctly, I used to watch Caillou a lot, and they always go like Caillou, Caillou. So I went Ayush.
Aww.
And so then people started calling him Ayush. Yeah. I hope the story is true. I kind of haven't fact checked it in a while, so I don't know. But he probably really does not care that is what happened, because it happened before he could probably even
process.
Yeah. Also, he probably just generally doesn't care about something like this. I don't feel like this is something that he probably thinks about. Yeah, that just came to mind because you said original intended name. Yeah. Versus what people call.
Yeah, my brother also has like the name situation.
Yeah.
So his name is Tanish in Hindi.
Mm-hmm.
So same situation where the T is a the, and people can say the. So like at home, we all call him Tanish. But then, like, I think in school, I should probably talk to him about this and figure out exactly what happens. But in school, like most people call him Tanish, which is like closer to Tanish.
Yeah.
The emphasis is on the other syllable, but like all the vowel sounds are the same.
Yeah.
Like Tanish, Tanish.
Yeah.
And so that is relatively close. Then there are some people who call him Tanish. I don't know in what context or whether he's introduced. I'm pretty sure he introduced himself as Tanish. I feel like I've heard my mom sometimes introduce him as Tanish.
Okay.
Like I don't know. I feel like it's a less common name.
Yeah.
And so it's like less guidelines on how to Americanize it. But so essentially like his name has the same situation where it's the to situation and they just call him a different name. And I don't know how he feels about that and whether he feels like he's adopted that because I only know him as Tanish.
Right.
But of course like he knows himself as whatever his names are.
Yeah.
And same way like he only knows me as Tanvi.
Right.
Yeah.
I was scared that I guess it would be fine if he was used to it, but Tanish is very different from Tanish. Yeah. But Tanish is actually not too bad.
Like, yeah. Tanish is not terrible.
Yeah, like I'm curious how it came up, like who decided to have that be the name.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Yeah, and especially because at that point, like he was born in the US, so my parents were in the US.
Yeah.
And I do think there was discussion about like American pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I think, for example, like one of the names being floated was Aditya, and Aditya is like a nightmare for Americanized English. Yeah. Like how do you even begin to say that?
It's never been done well, I think.
Yeah, so I do believe that name was scrapped, not only because, but primarily because of the name situation.
How have you heard it? I feel like the one I've heard the most, I think, is Aditya.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is like I think is the closest.
Yeah.
To Aditya, but like there's like Aditya, there's Aditya, there's Ditya. I feel like there's like Adi is what you end up going with.
That's true.
And
you
like,
can't even say Adi. I feel like Adi is
exactly.
a nice nickname, but yeah.
But the is like not a phone in English either. Or like I guess it is because people say like the word the, but it's still different than Aditya.
Is that different?
The Aditya. No, I guess you're right. It's not.
I don't know why people are struggling so much. It's such a pretty name, actually, Aditya. Like,
yeah, no, I really like it.
Yeah,
but it's it's not conducive to. I think it's less about. I honestly think it's less about each individual letter and sound than it is about the string of sounds and the way that we're used to putting those strings together.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite part of linguistics, phonology, is when you put strings of sounds together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what makes the name Aditya cool. Like the and the right next to each other. Very pretty.
Yeah.
And the ya right after.
Yeah.
Oh, so nice.
It is a very nice name.
Yeah.
Not meant to be.
But you're right, though. It's not Aditya. Oh, the they can't say still.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it? Aditya?
Yeah, or Aditya.
Aditya. Aditya. They could definitely say Aditya.
Yeah, but
they could even say Aditya. That's actually kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I think because of the way that the sounds, like, that's just not a permissible string of sounds in the English language.
It's hard for me to say Aditya. Like,
yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's like going from the tongue in between your teeth to having it behind.
Yes, yeah, that's a whole other part of it, is like the phonetics of it, is how your mouth moves to create these letters.
Like the physics, like literally like having it move. Yeah. Yeah.
That was another one of my favorite classes.
That's linguistics cool. Classes. I took the linguistics class for like 2 weeks, but then I didn't really like the teacher. I also felt very Eurocentric, so that's why I dropped it. I
mean, you got to start somewhere, you know? So you start with English and European languages.
But I didn't like... Okay, I think it can be taught well. I think the teacher kind of kept saying, like... it was very othering, like the way they were speaking about
that's an issue then.
Yeah. I didn't even realize I would be so bothered. But no, I think it's fair that I was.
Yeah. Considering you are theoretically the other.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I was like, my people. Like,
yeah.
Kind of my people. This is another interesting thing, actually. So at work... I think when I joined work, I had multiple different mini crises because it was a new environment, different people, but different just like demographic, I guess. Very like many different demographics of people. Age was one thing, kind of talked about that a little bit. But also I felt the least Indian I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
Because I was surrounded by people who were immigrants from India.
Yeah.
And I've never really had that many immigrant friends. My parents' friends, obviously, but most of their friends had kids born in America / grew up in America. And so those were my friends. And amongst that community, I feel pretty Indian. Now that I was like, quote unquote, equals with these people who were actually immigrants, also, like, my parents' age, or closer to my parents' age, still younger, but closer to my parents' age, but kind of my equal, because, we work together, and I call them by their first names, which is always so funny to me. Yeah, I just think I went through that crisis a little bit. Because, I got lunch with my Desi coworkers, like, immigrant, like, from India coworkers, and we got Indian food, and they were like, oh, do you know what this is? And I was like, oh my goodness, yes, of course I know what this is.
Oh, they thought you wouldn't know what it is.
And to be fair, like, it's fair that they don't know what I know and what I don't know.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that I don't know.
Yeah.
Food, I feel like they should have expected I knew, but...
Food is such central to Indian culture.
Yeah. But also, I can't speak Hindi that well, and so that's another thing that someone might assume I do know, and I wouldn't, and that would kind of feel bad. So it's probably for the best that they asked me.
Yeah.
So one of the people who I work with, kind of similarly to the story I was telling earlier about how I assumed I should say someone's name a certain way, this person's name was so blatantly incorrect. And he's from India. So I was like...
I remember you telling me the story.
Okay, yeah, I must have talked about this last time also. I was like, let me just listen to what other people are saying, first of all. That's what I did generally when I joined. Because again, asking people how to pronounce their names was not a common practice. So I listened, and even the people from India, his coworkers, his team, would call him by the American version of his name. And that really confused me, because it's one thing if your American-born friends who are maybe by ethnicity also from India or another South Asian country call you a certain name. But it felt to me different when it was like someone else from the motherland, from your country, calling you the name that you both in this new country are deciding. Adopted. Yeah, exactly. So that was just a little interesting to me. But I guess it's the same thing. Like, it's just you adopt a name for your identity in this country, whether it doesn't matter who the recipient is. It's just for everyone to use. So now actually, what do I call him now? Maybe I should just call him by the...
You can ask.
I can ask, yeah. Yeah, I guess I should. Maybe next time I talk to him one on one, I'll ask him. It's just funny to me because he is my parents' age. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like I shouldn't be calling you by your first name at all, anyways.
No.
But now that I am, like, it's not a question that I think they'd ask.
Yeah, or that they think about maybe even.
Yeah.
Now you got me thinking about how my parents say their names. My
Mm.
mom's name is super easy. It's like it's a name that transcends different cultures.
Mm.
So it's not a big deal. My dad's name is theoretically very easy to say and like a relatively common name, but I think people also call him by strange pronunciations of his name.
The maybe again.
Yeah, it's the A. It's the A that makes the
Yeah.
presents the issues.
My dad, he has J in his name, so people kind of just think it's Spanish and skip it a lot.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
like it.
Yeah,
But
all brown people are the same. Like
yeah,
all brown is all any brown is brown.
I guess, yeah. So that happens quite a lot. But generally not too bad. I guess the also.
Yeah.
My mom, interestingly, so her name I think is a little difficult for American
Hmm.
accents.
Yeah, it is a little.
But something that was so like she thought it was so whatever, but to me when she told me the story, I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
Was they were on vacation. They're on vacation right now actually. It was a similar thing where they went with a group. It was like a like people they don't know, but they all sign up for
I
this
see.
to
I
go on this
see.
trip together and it's guided. So they went on one of those. My mom just decided to give them a nickname. Like
Oh.
all the people she met, she would say, "My name is," and just say the first three letters of her name.
Oh, wow.
She said, "My name is Nam." It's not even the A sound is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just like came back from like a what 2 week trip and was like telling me all these stories, and then like a week later, she was like, "Oh, telling another story," and then she like mentioned that they called her Nam, and I was like, "What?" Like that is so profound. Like that's such a major plot point in your
Yeah.
trip. Like you were being called a different name. You gave yourself a different identity.
Yeah.
I feel like. I think it was just easier for her and for everyone. And in a way, I think she really liked it. Like I think
Yeah.
she loved the experience of being able to have people say her name. Like I think
Yeah.
that just brings a lot of joy.
Yeah. And when there's no like ambiguity and like I feel like I notice. I feel like I can sense the hesitation when people try to say my name. And some
Mm,
people don't hesitate. I feel really good. So I feel like maybe for her it's like giving them a name that they definitely can say equals
yeah,
no hesitation equals no like internal struggles or issues.
true. And it's something that she decided. Like
Yeah.
this is gonna be my name. Call me this. It's not something that they just couldn't do it, so they just picked
Yes.
something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, that was like really shocking to me. I wonder if she's gonna do the same thing this time because it's
Yeah.
also the same concept of a trip with the group. So I'll ask her. Yeah, like very nonchalantly she did that. Also, generally, she's like always liked the idea of me giving myself the nickname Ash for some reason, even though I really hate it. She
Yeah.
would never call me that. She
Yeah.
calls my family calls me Ashi, which I love. She would always say, "Oh, like a good nickname for you in school could be Ash."
Ash.
I don't know why actually, because I really don't like it at all. And I always tell her this, but for some reason she likes it. I don't know, just random, but
Yeah, I don't know if it's related to like the Indian English
probably not.
related things. Yeah, my nickname is basically the same thing as my name, but it's like Tanu. So you still have to
Oh,
say the
oh
so
yeah.
yeah.
But would you even want anyone else calling you
Tanu?
by your nickname? Yeah.
My family even doesn't really call me much by my nickname
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
It's more of like a when I was a kid
Mm,
nickname.
yeah.
And occasionally it'll come out or like my grandparents will call me Tanu.
Mm.
Um,
It's really cute. I like it.
you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we'll bring it back.
Yeah. But I feel like for me, I don't know. I don't want anyone else to call me Ashi. Like it's just my
Yeah.
family. Like I would not want my friends to call me that at all.
Yeah, I feel like Tanvi already is enough of a nickname that my friends call me. Like,
That's fair.
yeah.
Actually, when I was in college, I did have one nickname because the other Ashna and I had one friend in common. She would call me, I think she would call me, so ASH basically, but I'm trying to think if it was Osh or Ash. No, I can't remember because it was usually over text.
Mm.
I don't remember anymore what the A was, but I didn't mind that actually. So now I'm confused if I don't like Ash or not. Maybe Osh. I don't know. Over text, I feel like maybe it's better.
Yeah, you can, because like, I don't know, you probably just read it in your head as your whole name.
Maybe.
Mm.
It just felt endearing, but also didn't feel mispronounced.
Yeah,
Maybe because I was thinking Osh. I don't really know.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ash, I don't mind actually. I kind of like that
Gosh.
as a nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any conversations with other people about their names that you think are, I don't know, interesting or stuck with you or anything like that? Anything that you haven't already talked about?
Not necessarily. I think like the biggest name thing I run into is like other brown people
Mm-hmm.
whose names become difficult to pronounce. Like, yeah, there have been like other brown people in my med school class who we dance the same dance. Like, okay, what are we calling each other? Like, what are we calling each other in front of other people? And then I feel like I always end up defaulting to the Americanized version because, well, mostly, except for like the one close friend that I have, which I switch between, because everyone else that's brown people in my class, I don't see that often. And I only see them in the context of other people. So
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be weirder calling them by a different name than what everyone else in the group is calling them by.
right.
So I just conform in that
Yeah.
sense.
I think maybe once or twice this past weekend when I was meeting some of your friends.
Yes, I was actually just going to bring that up because I distinctly remember when we were at the brewery, and you said Tanvi, like you said like, oh,
You,
like Tanvi does this or something. I feel like I
oh
saw.
shoot, really?
No, like not in a bad way
I
at
mean,
all.
we're not gonna call you anything
Yeah,
else.
exactly. No, but I definitely saw some of my friends like double take
Oh,
because I
really?
don't think any of the friends you saw at the brewery, like I don't
Mm,
think I've ever introduced myself as Tanvi, and I
yeah,
don't know if I've had those conversations with them about it.
I see. Yeah.
So maybe this will be interesting. I'll ask them on Thursday, maybe when I see them, what they if they noticed, and also like what their thoughts are.
Okay.
Yeah, and let you know.
Yeah, I'd be very intrigued. I think I don't remember it the time that you're mentioning. I do remember it once. I did say it once and I saw a reaction.
Mm.
But and then for a second I was like, wait, should I? And I was like, I don't even know just like I don't know there's nothing to correct here, so let me just
Yeah,
keep talking.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess for them it's also like processing like who am I talking about? Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
same
Especially because
person.
like they only know me as that one name.
Right.
There are like my closest friends or like my oldest friends in med school. Like I definitely had the conversation
Mm-hmm.
about names before.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even brought up to them like how I don't like how some people try to say my name when they can't.
Yeah.
So they like very much know where
Nice.
they're supposed to stand in
That's
that.
good.
But maybe I
Clarity.
should have that conversation with my new friends, like the people I continue to meet in med school.
Yeah. It's hard to have just casually though. I feel like you need to be it's right place and time, right?
I don't know. I feel like I could just bring it up.
Okay.
I feel like all the friends that I've made in med school would be like willing and open to have this
Okay.
conversation.
Love that.
Yeah,
Okay.
at any point in time.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay then. Yeah, maybe. I hope you feel empowered enough to do that
Yeah,
whenever
in the car on
whenever.
Thursday. That's what's gonna happen.
Okay. Sounds good. That's funny. Okay.
I have yet to have a problem where like preceptors in the hospital call me by my wrong name.
Mm,
Actually, that's a lie. Maybe like, a couple of them call me Tanvi, but like again, I don't really mind that as much.
really?
Yeah,
Why?
like I said, I don't know. It's like another like pseudo permissible version of my name because I've been called that in the past.
Wait, you started this podcast by saying that that was like the one that you can't tolerate.
No, the one that I can't tolerate is when they say like try to say Tanvi, but they can't say Tanvi.
That's definitely the one you said you don't tolerate the most. But like Tanvi, you were like, just call me Tanvi.
Yes, I mean ideally you would just call me Tanvi, but like it's not the end of the world if you call me Tanvi.
Okay. We need
Like
to play back the tape.
I'm not introducing myself as Tanvi.
Okay, yeah.
They just decide to call me even after I introduce myself as Tanvi. They decide to call me Tanvi.
Yeah.
But like it's not like especially for like an attending who I'm only like working with for like a week or two, like whatever, it's not the
Yeah.
end of the world.
Okay.
If it would be like a friend that I see regularly, then it would be more of an issue.
Right. Okay. Okay, I see the context
Yeah.
difference. Yeah, that's fair.
But I've had these thoughts also in the hospital because a lot of the interns and residents that I worked with were also like of international origin in the sense that they had like ethnic names.
Yeah.
So like I kept thinking about bringing this up with my intern, but I kept forgetting because his name also starts with a T, and I say it as like the Americanized T, but I have a feeling that if you say it properly, it's the soft T, like T, it's like the sound.
Yeah.
But I never ended up having that conversation with him. I feel like it's a very universal experience in the sense that people who have non-Americanized names, especially the T's for whatever reason.
Yeah. A lot of East Asian people have two names.
Yeah.
Like, two very different names,
You're right.
actually. I think there's been many times where I've tried to pronounce their East Asian name, just again, like out of a desire to, yeah, respect their given name / what I guess I assumed was the name that they identify more with. But in reflection, after hearing you, it's probably just best to like call them by whatever they ask me to call them by, only because I probably not saying their East Asian name correctly. Most of the times I do end up just calling them by their American name because that's what I'm familiar, that's how I know them. Yeah, I guess maybe there's no harm in trying to pronounce it while they're teaching you, but
Yeah.
I guess if you can't say it right, then maybe it's better to not say it, which is kind of probably, I don't know if everyone agrees. Maybe everyone's still a little
Yeah,
different,
that's also
but
possible. Yeah,
yeah.
that's very much. Yeah, that's true. I forgot that some people do have two like completely separate names.
And actually, this reminds me, there's this one person I knew in college who went by, yeah, a like, what do you even call it? Like a what is like? It's not just American. It's like, oh, Western, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think this applies to everyone, but I know some East Asian people call it their Christian name.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we can call it that. So this guy had a Christian name, but and everyone I know calls him that. I didn't even know his like, I don't actually know where he's from, his East Asian name.
Mm-hmm.
But on his Instagram, he doesn't have his Christian name anywhere, actually.
Ah,
It's only his East Asian name.
yeah.
And it's not like one of them is spelled out in like English letters, but it's also spelled out in, I don't know what characters, probably like Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his Christian name is nowhere to be found. So I'm like, oh, he probably does want people to call him this, but they probably just can't.
Mm,
But he also doesn't introduce himself as that,
yeah.
either because A, people can't pronounce it and he wants to make it easy for them, or B, kind of like you, he doesn't want people to mispronounce it, so he's like, just call me this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe to the people he knows who can pronounce it, he will say,
Please.
yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what his girlfriend calls him because she's not East Asian. I'm curious.
Yeah, there's a very famous golfer who his name was Tom Kim, and so all his friends call him Tom.
Mm-hmm.
But on the tour, he uses the name Tom. Like that's not his real name.
This actually, sorry, we can keep talking, but for ages. But there's this really, 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 really cool exhibit that someone I knew put on in Seattle. It was about names. So, it was incredible. She did so well. She'd been planning it for so long. Basically, it was a whole art gallery and was full of people's name stories. It was like the exhibit was about name stories. I had a little small section.
Oh,
for
you
my
did?
name.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's so cute.
There's one wall with like people who wrote like one or two paragraphs, like something small, and they were just like full of them. So I put mine and my picture of me and my dad on there as a kid. But yeah, there was like some of the big features were there's a lot more content. There was video content. It was like very well put together, and that was the main part of the room. So they had big portraits. The portraits were also so well done. She's a photographer, so that's really cool. Yeah, they wrote letters to their younger selves, and then they also had this video portion where they were talking about how they feel about their names, and it was so interesting. And because they all had very different backgrounds, so it was just cool to hear. But one of the stories was about someone who moved to Seattle and started working in media slash was a news anchor. And when she was applying for the job, she has a traditional Cambodian name. But after interviewing for the job, they were like, great job. But if you sign on for the job and you become an anchor here, we're going to ask you to change your last name to Kim, which is a very traditionally Korean last name.
Wait, that's a completely different name.
Yeah, exactly. And at the time she was like, okay, I guess, like,
yeah,
for the job. Very weird, but and I don't think her original last name was that hard to pronounce, but for whatever reason, the people owning the news company wanted her to have an even easier, maybe more known name.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know who the audience of this news channel is. So yeah, for many years she presented her last name as Kim on TV.
That's wild.
Yeah, so wild. And also it was sad because yeah, like Cambodia, like I believe she was a Cambodian refugee also. So her heritage was kind of being lost in this as well. So that was just, yeah, I think she talked a lot about how she didn't really process this when it was all happening, but like later on, many years into the job, she kind of started thinking about it a lot more and I felt a little weird about it because it's kind of also too late now. It felt like to tell anyone that this is not her name.
And like reclaim her name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there was one day where she was posting a picture of her as a baby in a refugee camp and had her name on something. And she cropped her name out of the photo because she didn't want to answer any questions because she was kind of a public figure. Yeah, that story was so interesting to me. And now she's fully reclaimed her original name.
Good. I was going to ask.
Yeah, she's definitely been on a journey. All the people in that exhibit have been on a journey to fully reclaim their names.
That makes me mad. Like, who the hell has the authority to ask someone to change their entire last name?
I know. insane to me. Like, so wild. And I couldn't even believe that that was a real thing. I don't know when this was. It might have been, yeah, I don't know
In
what year
the
this was, but
yeah, ages ago when people had no concept of respect for people's
I guess.
backgrounds.
But I don't think it was even that long ago. Like, I don't know actually.
Mm.
I'd say maybe in the 2000s, but I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly when it
It's
was.
very upsetting.
Yeah, very odd that that was a thing that could happen. But yeah, also just generally, some people are not, namely white Americans who have not been exposed to other cultures, are not just very unfamiliar with this whole part of living
Mm.
that I think makes them very ignorant to just, yeah, like how big a deal it is to have to change your name
Yeah,
or be called something else. Like, it just doesn't even cross their minds. My manager being one of them, the
yeah,
people that misnamed me, like my peers misnaming people being another. Like, yeah, for both of us, I guess. And it's just so wild to me. Yeah, it's just something that they have never experienced.
yeah. Last thought I think on when you were saying about how they've never experienced it. So
Yeah.
I follow this, or not follow, but the subreddit follow, like comes up on my feed regularly. It's called Tragedy, but it's spelled like Tragedieigh,
Okay.
because like now there are so many names where for the E sound they do EIGH.
Mm.
So it's like basically making fun of names that
Oh.
are spelled in incredibly strange ways for like normal names. Like Kylie will be Kyle-Leigh, or I don't know, Brittany or whatever.
Oh
Any
my
any
gosh.
number of names that are spelled strange ways, and not just the EIEH ones, but like tons and tons of names. So I feel like now with all these like strange names, like strange like white American names that
Mm.
people are naming their children, maybe they will also experience
Maybe.
the trauma that is to be called by all different types of names.
They're just yearning for this exclusionary behavior. Like, they're just
Yeah.
yearning to be ethnic.
Literally.
But I guess the names are still known, just the spelling is
Yeah, yeah.
different. Such an interesting concept of like a known name. Ah, something. Okay, sorry. Maybe one more last thought
Hmm.
is when I used to write stories as a kid, I would always pick
White
like white
names.
American names. Yeah, and they would be like white people as
Yeah.
well. Because and it wasn't strange to me at all, and I didn't even cross my mind that that was not normal until much later in life, and I was like, why was I writing about like Kylie and Haley and Brittany and all these people who I don't even know what their lives are like. And truly, it's about representation. That was the like clearest example of representation for kids
Yeah.
makes a huge difference because now, obviously, I yeah, I feel like I've thought about my identity a lot. I feel like I can actually only write from the perspective of my identity. I find it very
Yeah.
difficult to write from others, which is something I've thought about a lot as well. But as a kid, it's just what you read is what you write. And so that was not surprising to me at all at the
No, that's a
time.
really good point. And I've thought about it all, but I'm sure if I go back and also read things I wrote, it's
Yeah.
also centered around like on characters that are not me.
Yes.
Yeah. I was on a kick a while ago, probably like couple of years ago at this point, of reading like books with primarily South Asian characters.
Hmm.
But I don't know, I feel like sometimes they lean into it a little bit too much,
Yeah.
and it becomes like, okay, we don't actually talk like that at home. Like we don't actually like wear saris to things. Like
Yeah.
we're American, we just happen to have names that are not.
Yeah.
So I think there's a line that
Yeah.
can be walked there.
There's this book. Do you know The Namesake?
No.
It's a book about it's one of the first popular books about um Indian immigrants in America and then their kids.
Mm.
And so when I first read it, I was like, "Oh, I love this. Like, have not read a book like this about people who share this identity." Like, wow, like it was so wow to me. I bought it immediately. But then I went to the writers conference that I went to in
Hmm.
Seattle, and we were talking about that book, and a lot of people there who have explored South Asian literature a lot really don't like The Namesake, and it's
Mm.
because The Namesake is written about South Asian people for white people in a lot of
Oh.
ways. Like, I still don't think it's a bad book, but I think things like explaining terminology mid-sentence or, using alternate words to explain something, or like I guess when you read it, you can tell that it was made for someone who's unfamiliar with the culture. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I think the point that these people I met were making is we don't need to do that, and there should be more literature that doesn't do that for the community. Like right now, we're still writing for another community, but we should be writing for ourselves, and that's okay, and that's good.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Now that you say that, okay, last
Yeah.
story. So my cousin, who I'm very, very, very proud of, is getting her book published
Yes.
later this year. And so I like just was rereading her book the last couple of days. And her book is written like she's an Indian, she's from India, she lives in Delhi. It's written for other Indians. It's written in English, but she like obviously like brings in Indian words and like Hindi words, I mean, and like Indian concepts and places and all of that. That is a book that is like an Indian book with an Indian characters and Indian settings.
Yeah.
And it doesn't explain any of it because it's assuming that the audience also knows all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought of that when you said explaining things because yeah, she just like has words in Hindi in there and there's no need for an explanation.
Yeah. That is beautiful. I do think it's difficult to even find a publisher that allows that because I think a lot of times they know that. I guess it depends on who the target audience is.
Yeah, well, in her case, the target audience is other Indian people.
So maybe.
Although I hope maybe it comes to the U.S. and it gets popular.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah,
I hope so too. But I'd imagine that publishing that book maybe in America they would try to enforce. Some of them would try to enforce some sort of
definitely 100%
explanatory language. But
yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's not even. What is her name? Jhumpa Lahiri. I think that's the author of The Namesake, something like that.
Oh.
Maybe it wasn't her decision to have all the parentheses.
Yeah.
But it was someone else's. And honestly, it was one of the first books, again, that became popular that was about this identity. So we have to start somewhere. Like, yes. I'm glad it exists. So.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good book. Funny story, though, about that book is my mom read it also. And I called her after I read it, which is much after she had read it. I didn't know that she had read it. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, this book was so good. And I was like, being an immigrant seems so difficult.
So that's your mom.
I literally said to mom, I was like, thank you so much. Like, I feel like you don't talk about this enough. Yeah. Like, this was such a journey. And she was like, wait, it wasn't like, this book was so dramatic. She didn't like the book because she was like, no offense to the I think the book was good.
Yeah.
But from her perspective, she felt like it wasn't accurate because she was like, they made it sound way worse than it was. Like, I think to her, either she's downplaying it now.
Yeah, after all of it has
happened, yeah. Or maybe she came a little bit after the immigrant period they're describing in the book. Or generally, maybe if she's in New Jersey, like maybe it was just better.
Yeah. But and where you come from India also matters.
Yeah. Also, they were moving from Germany, which maybe the contrast was just an improvement. I don't really know. I don't even know if she remembers anymore, but I just thought that was so funny because she was like, wait, like, don't be thanking me.
So
like,
funny.
It actually was not that bad. Aww. Which was really funny to me. Because I was like sobbing. I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that it was so.
Wow,
so
I really want to read this book now.
I think it's worth. Yeah, definitely was worth reading. I think it's a marker in American literature. I might even say. Okay. But
yeah, because I have lots of thoughts and feelings about my own immigrant experience. Yeah. Which is like very different than the classic immigrant experience.
Yeah.
And very like in between immigrant experiences.
Yeah.
So I'd love to read more about immigrant experiences.
I am curious. I think, okay, to be fair, I think the immigrant, the part that comes from the immigrant perspective, what I remember is largely about parenting in a new country. So yeah, exactly. But that's why I was like sobbing. I was like, oh my God, like raising a kid, first of all by yourself in a new country, like the rest of your family has support of the rest of their family.
Yeah.
But like you are literally all alone. Probably can't drive. You can't walk anywhere. Like, all these things. You have to cook. You have to do everything by yourself. Like, just there's no village. You're just lonely. Like, that was
That's what I think helped my parents the most when we moved to the U.S. is there was a village.
Was there?
Yeah, it's like my dad's company had sent a lot of people to the U.S. for this project.
Yeah.
And so there was like a TCS group of people that became like their friend group essentially.
Nice.
In Pennsylvania, and like there was a bunch of them also in our complex. So everyone hung out and everyone like shared the duties of taking care of the kids, etc.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. We still talk to those like families.
Nice. Critical people
Yeah.
in the story of their lives.
Yep.
I don't know I don't know my parents' first friends were, but I imagine they also had some sort of community because my mom was like, this book was really dramatic. Like
Yes.
we
Yeah.
had friends, so I think that they also found some community.
Yeah, and when you're in, I mean, we were in Pennsylvania, but like whatever, Pennsylvania, New Jersey,
Yeah.
like you'll find people.
Yeah. Thankfully, yeah. Yeah.
So this turned into
Yeah.
talking about immigrants instead of names.
Yeah, we
But
did
it's all the same, like especially for us.
related.
Yeah.
I feel we could probably talk more about just the Indian American experience.
Yeah. I have lots
But
of thoughts.
yeah. Yeah. I think same. Especially after living in Seattle for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say also, especially, I think it's more for me, it's like just living outside of New Jersey for a
Fair.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's actually no, I did live in Maryland and it was kind of similar. But it was still a little different actually though. So because yeah, sorry. Different topic.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we'll finish on names there.
Yeah.
But we have to do Rex.
Yeah, I actually have to think about this. So do you have one?
Let's see, what have I read? I don't know, can I recommend my cousin's book?
I feel like
when it comes out, I'll rec it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. And that way people can read it.
Yeah, the people listening.
At least a couple people. We know who you are.
That's so wild to me. I'm so honored. Thank you for listening. If you're still here.
Let me look at my Goodreads. I've been really on a Goodreads kick. Or not.
Nice.
I don't think it's a kick. I hope it's not a kick. Goodreads grind, I should say.
Nice.
I used to feel bad because the books that I read, I didn't want other people to know that I was reading them, but now I have no shame.
That's good. Okay, now that my Goodreads is open, I kind of want to just mention one and then recommend one. Okay, I thought both were good. So the one that I'm not this is not my final answer, but I just want to mention that The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was really good.
I haven't read it. But
I thought it was I think it had been a really long time since I had read, you know the feeling that you get when you're reading the dystopian novels, like the middle school, like, my gut, my heart, my brain, like everything is activated. I just hadn't felt like that in a long time. And I thought it was really good because it was also written from the perspective of a very interesting guy who's not necessarily, you're not supposed to necessarily agree with him, but
yeah, you're not supposed to root for him.
Yeah, but you see his inner thoughts and he totally believes he's doing the right things. And I just thought it was a very creative perspective. I thought it was well written. And it just the lore, like you get to see a little bit of the the behind the scenes, I guess, or like the precursor, I guess, to the later revolution. So I just thought it was good. But anyways, it's not even what I wanted to. I read Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime, and I thought it was really good. I've been listening to Trevor Noah's podcast. Let me just recommend his podcast. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I read his book because of his podcast, because I've been listening to it so much. I literally listen to it every day, every Thursday. Sorry, not every day. Every Thursday, because it comes out on Wednesdays. And I love it. I've listened to some of the episodes multiple times. And I just think he asks really good questions. I don't always agree with his takes. In fact, sometimes I think that they are a bit extreme, but sometimes I agree with them. And I like the people on his podcast, Christiana and Josh, and he has guests as well who are experts in their relevant fields. I just think it's a very thoughtful podcast. And the premise of the podcast is he makes a big deal about the fact that in today's society, we don't often have conversations where we're allowed to be wrong because cancel culture is so strong. And so even though like sometimes people might have extreme opinions, it's like okay, like it's like let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. Even though it's on a podcast and people listen to, it's like, well, let's just talk about it. Like let's see if we can prove each other wrong or convince each other otherwise. And we all do kind of have some biases that we can't fully get rid of, and so it's okay to say that and then talk through why that is, or like get your way out of that. So I think it's a very well done podcast. And I think he's a good, really, really good communicator. I really like his communication style. I think he's a good storyteller, which is why I liked his book as well. It's about his childhood, which was also just fun to read. Yeah, I think my recommendation is is it called What Now? Let me confirm what it's called.
We'll put it in the show notes too.
Okay, yes, we'll put it in the show notes. But it is called What Now with Trevor Noah.
Nice.
I think it's a great podcast.
No, I'm gonna listen to it.
Yay!
I've never listened to it before.
Yay!
I've been meaning to listen to the audiobook Born a Crime
Oh,
for
yeah.
ages and ages and
Yeah.
ages. But I just don't read. Like, I'm like not in the mood for nonfiction recently.
But it's like stories. It's all stories.
I'll read it.
I think it's a good one, yeah. But I'm also a big fan right now, so I'm a little biased.
Okay, fair. I feel like I'm also gonna take this. I was gonna recommend this thing, but then I also remember this other thing I want to recommend, so I'm gonna recommend both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the book that I was gonna recommend is called Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez.
Okay.
It's like your like standard contemporary romance book. But the two main characters are doctors. They're ER doctors. And one, I think, especially after being on clerkships for 6 months, I feel like I really love like doctor stories. Like love the concept that doctors have lives outside of medicine. And I love thinking that I will be one day a doctor with the life outside of medicine that also is experiencing all these things, like falling in love and having lives and having like struggles. And so, and then this book was like so much beyond that also. Like it was, oh my God, it like literally broke me and then built me up. It was incredibly sad. I think also, I don't know, it is very emotional. And emotional in like a way that I think hit me also specifically. But I really like it. I think everyone should read it, especially if you're in medicine. It's very cute also. Just gave me a lot of hope. It also has some of my favorite tropes, like fake dating. So
nice.
That added.
Is that really one of your favorite tropes?
That's my absolute favorite trope.
Really?
Yeah. The book that I'm gonna write is gonna be on fake dating.
So true.
100%. It's my favorite trope.
Okay, interesting.
But my real recommendation is this new show by Rhett and Link called Rhett and Link's Wonderhole.
Okay.
So Rhett and Link, as some of you may know, are the hosts of GMM or Good Mythical Morning on YouTube, which is like a variety show that they have every morning. And they have been talking about for years and years and years about creating a show, like a more traditional, like mainstream media show, a show that they've been pitching to networks for literally a decade, like a long time. They've been trying to adapt what their show is to try to fit the ideals of like media companies and mainstream like streaming companies, until finally they basically said, we want to create what we want to create. We don't want to compromise our vision and what we think people will connect with for the sake of a streaming company. They're like, we have capital, let's just create the show and put it on YouTube for whoever wants to watch it. So the show is called Wonderhole. I think the first like 4 or 5 episodes are out of 6. Probably by the time this comes out, all of it will be out. And it is so good. Like it, and obviously me as a GMM fan, like I'm someone who watches GMM every morning. So it hits even harder for me because I feel like whatever, me in this like parasocial relationship with Red and Link, I feel like I know who they are and I know their creative approach to things. And like this show is them, like it, and so the brand that they've created, Mythical, is exactly that. It's like mythical. It's about like creativity and curiosity and like song and imagination and learning and friendship. And like their show is like all of those things perfectly together in a way that it just like is truly them and is like entertaining and makes you think. And like I cried at the last episode. Like it's so good. And like again, I don't know how it hits for people who don't know them as well or don't like know their background and their approach to creativity as much. But I think it's a wonderful show and it takes you in directions you don't necessarily expect.
Okay.
So I recommend watching Wonderhole. And every episode is standalone, so you don't have to watch from the first one.
Okay.
But I do think that the first one is my favorite so far.
Oh, nice.
Maybe Ben's episode is my favorite, but that's favorite for a different reason. So I would recommend the first episode to start with. Perfect. And then go from there. But I really like it, and I think more people need to support it. So.
Okay, I will watch it.
Nice.
That I will do.
Beautiful.
Yay!
Okay, I guess that's all. Those are our recs. Those are our thoughts.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.